A journey through the majestic Alps, from Switzerland to France. A voyage of discovery from the Bernese Oberland to the Maritime Alps. In the Oberland, the younger generation has embraced the Alpine Horn, or Alp Horn. We meet the only female member of the Verbier Ski Patrol. Not far from Lake Geneva, a birdman jets through the air at 300 kilometers per hour. Our voyage through the Alps takes us through Switzerland. First of all, above the Bernese Oberland and the alleged glacier. Then, overflying the Rhone to Verbier in Valais, and on to Bay, Château d'Ay, and Gstaad. We begin in the canton of Bern. Between Lake Thun and Lake Brienz lies the town of Interlaken. From the 19th century onwards, tourists flocked to this region of the Oberland, attracted by the writings of Goethe and Lord Byron, as well as by the music of Mendelssohn. It was here that two German mathematicians who developed set theory first met. And then the first tourists arrived. We stop at 1,300 meters above Saxeten. Exploring the jazz, blues, and funk repertoire, Eliana Burki plays an Alp Horn.
When I approach the mountains, I have a feeling of freedom. I can breathe. I find my inspiration. When I walk on an alpine trail, I really feel like myself.
Eliana has joined her friend Corinne Seematter, a specialist in yodeling or traditional alpine singing. They first met 10 years ago on a television program. Now, whenever they meet, it's an opportunity for a rich musical exchange.
I heard the sound of the Alp Horn for the first time when I was 6 years old. I was immediately fascinated by its distinctive sound, and I told my parents, that's what I want to play. I fell in love with the instrument from day one.
Corinne is a yodeler. And yodeling is a type of singing used by shepherds to communicate in the mountains.
I started composing jazz because, from the age of 9, I knew that I didn't get on with the folk music canon. My father was a fan of Miles Davis and Chet Baker. At home, I grew up surrounded by jazz. So I decided to play jazz on the Alp Horn.
In the meantime, Eliana has become an international artist whose concert tours take her all over the world.
It wasn't easy at first. Playing this instrument wasn't really fashionable for a teenager, and I was told to try the drums or guitar. But I absolutely wanted to play the Alp Horn, and when I began to develop my own style, I ran smack into the traditions and was criticized for triggering a minor musical revolution.
Was machst du hier genau?
Also ich störe jetzt diesen Käse.
Heimat ist für mich das Wichtigste.
These mountains are my home. It's essential for me. I enjoy eating cheese in America and everywhere else in the world, but it's not as good as here. I'm only really happy when I'm with my family, eating a lovely raclette with some good mountain cheese from home.
Eliana has modernized the Alp Horn, no longer the exclusive preserve of men or tradition.
Die Alpen, das ist ein Paradies.
Just look around you. The Alps are paradise. There's nowhere more beautiful. Just sit yourself down in the grass and let yourself be filled with this incredible feeling that words can't describe.
The voyage continues towards the Jungfrau, then Grindelwald. This village has a unique backdrop of three prestigious peaks. The Eiger, the Mönch, and the Jungfrau give this village its special identity. At 3,970 meters, the Eiger, one of the most compelling legends in the history of mountaineering worldwide. The north face, some 1,600 meters high, remains the hardest climb in the Alps, its conquest marked by a great many tragedies. 1938, two teams, one Austrian and one German, made the first successful ascents of the monumental north face of the Eiger. In bygone days, the ice would come down to the valley floor. In 150 years, the lower Grindelwald glacier has receded by more than a kilometer. From the Swiss Alpine Club's huts, you can fully appreciate the backdrop. We stop opposite Grindelwald to see Bruno Kaufmann, caretaker of the Glecksteinhütte and sculptor in wood.
My
brother and I grew up at the Glecksteinhütte. I can feel all the strength and serenity of our peaks. Even in bad weather, the mountains are always a presence. It's a calming presence, and it increases my creativity.
A mountain guide like his father and his brother, Bruno explored the region's peaks for many years. After journeys to America and Nepal, he trained as a cabinet maker and gave up mountaineering to work with wood. He built his workshop on the upper slopes of the village.
Nature created wood, my medium of expression. Basically, I use found material. When I want to make an object, I walk in the forest and I observe the dead trees, those struck by lightning. And that's where I stop. All I do is interpret. I invent a wooden object. That's my job. When I work with wood, I'm working on living material. When I cut it, I plane it, I can smell it and feel the heat it gives off. It moves, it lives on. Wood is a living being. It's exciting.
Bruno examines the raw materials and with his hands translates his ideas into the shapes of furniture and objects. It's an art that demands a great deal of patience. Bruno is in demand as an interior designer. He uses the pure lines of branches, the roots of large dried-out trees, petrified or burnt by lightning. This work requires an eye for detail, balance, and a love of wood drawn from a natural environment that knows no bounds. Bruno is a surveyor of the woods, a collector who knows how to grasp the life and soul of trees.
I'm fascinated by the peaks that overlook Grindelwald. The Eiger, the Ogre. No other place in the world is as close to the mountains. There's the village, and immediately above, the mountains.
Above Grindelwald, there is also the Jungfrau Pass, 3,500 meters in altitude. Here you will find the highest railway station in Europe. A series of tunnels and an elevator lead to the summit of the Sphinx and its scientific observatory. All around are the Bernese Alps, with the Oberland and Upper Valais peaks of more than 4,000 meters. Lower down is the Aletsch Glacier, one of 1,500 glaciers in Switzerland. The longest in continental Europe, it stretches over 24 kilometers. Between the Alp Horn and Horn summits, this ice monster grinds everything in its path, moving at a speed of around 200 meters a year. The Aletsch Glacier ends its course in the valley. The Jungfrau Aletsch Beachhorn region is listed as a UNESCO World Natural Heritage Site. Between 3,200 and 1,300 meters, dozens of kilometers of ski runs link resorts that are inaccessible by car. Resorts like the villages of Reideralp and Bellalp. 1.5 centuries ago, the British discovered the site and its view over the huge frozen river and began to build hotels perched on the mountainside. We carry on our voyage from Bellalp up to Leukebad, the biggest spa in the Alps. At 1,400 meters, 8 hot springs have been used year-round without interruption since Roman times. Higher up, at 2,300 meters, the Gemmi Pass was once the transit point from the canton of Valais to that of Bern. Here we find Marco Heini, who teaches skiing in the winter and sailing in the summer on Lake Darbon. Marco holds his catamaran courses at the highest sailing center in Europe.
We sail on this lake for 2 months of the year. It's very short, but intense, and very close to nature. The difference between the sea and this lake at 2,200 meters is that here, the weather changes quickly, and the wind is very variable. To me, it's a challenge to sail where no one else has sailed before.
Today, despite the light wind, Marco is teaching his trainee the basic maneuvers indispensable to tackling sailing at altitude.
Perfetto. Die Leute, die hier oben kommen, die sind eigentlich schon sehr
My trainees are always happy on this lake. Firstly, for the sailing, and also for the original training, which will be of use anywhere. They're happy to sail against such a backdrop. It's so unusual. The mountains are almost tumbling into the water.
After plying his skills on all the world's seas, Marco remains very attached to his region. To marry his two passions, ski and sail, he had the unusual idea of founding his sailing school in the mountains. At the end of their course, his students are awarded a local sailing permit.
Many people see it as a dream life, sailing in summer and skiing in winter. I've been living that life for several years now.
Marco grew up in the water in Leukerbad. Today, mastering the wind assuages his thirst for freedom.
I drew the winning numbers in the lottery of life. Now I'm a millionaire in life's riches.
Riche de la vie.
From Lake Dorban, we cross the Rhone Valley on our way up past the station of Saas-Fee and its peaks to Zermatt and the Matterhorn. The voyage continues in winter. 13 summits of over 4,000 meters surround the nearby villages. An Alpine metro takes you under the glacier to the Mittelalalen station and its revolving restaurant, the highest in the world. Further down, the valley of Saas-Fee and Saas-Grund, nicknamed the Pearl of the Swiss Alps. We pass the Misschabel Massif, which rises as high as 4,500 meters. In the distance, we can see Alphübel and the Allerlin. Then comes Monte Rosa, and then the world-famous Matterhorn. With the Eiger and the Grand Joras, these three peaks have the highest north faces in the Alps. The Matterhorn is the symbol of the village of Zermatt. Perched at 1,600 meters altitude in the German-speaking part of Upper Valley, the resort grew when the scientists came to the area, even before the arrival of the mountaineering pioneers. Above Zermatt, we stop at Findeln, 2,000 meters up. Here we find architect and designer Heinz Jülen. Scion of one of the oldest families in the valley, this former ski instructor is putting his own slant on the local habitat.
Also Findeln ist für mich dann schon
Findeln is the refuge I set up as a boy. It's where I go to think about an idea, to develop it.
die Basic einer Idee, also eine Idee zu entwickeln. Die Idee ist ja was eigentlich ganz Einfaches, so eine Grundidee für
When you begin a project, you start with a simple idea,
da oben und
but that needs knocking into shape.
wohl und eingebettet eben auch in diese
And I feel good here, in a childhood setting.
die Kindheit und alles und
Heinz built his chalet laboratory from recycled materials. In his Zermatt workshop, the artist builds prototypes from the sketches he made in the mountains. Using metal or wood, his team gives life to his inventions. Furniture, chandeliers, all kinds of objects that will be sold locally or shipped all around the world. In Zermatt, places that have been dreamed up by the architect are hard to avoid. His latest creation is an amalgamation of art, illusion and marketing, the Backstage Hotel.
I built this hotel and created a space for relaxation that complements the virtues of the mountains. A space that gives off spirituality and the energy of all the senses. For the eyes, the ears, the nose, for the body and the mind.
In Heinz's world, the body is placed in harmony with the natural elements, as if it were weightless.
I'm sure that I was born and grew up at a time of traditional values and a way of life that is now forgotten. And I experienced this evolution in my environment. My ideas are often criticized in the village. I've never done any studies. I learned my trade instinctively. I see myself as a self-taught, creative person, the product of a bygone age. That's why my works have a right and a duty to exist, just as they are, wherever I install them.
The border between Switzerland and Italy, the Matterhorn Peak, 4,450 meters. In 1865, the unclimbed peak was the prize in a legendary duel, a race between two teams of mountaineers, Jean-Antoine Carrel and Jean-Baptiste Biche from the Italian side, and the Englishman Whymper and his guides from the Swiss side. Victory was claimed by Whymper 3 days ahead of his rivals. Negotiating peaks and glaciers, let us continue our winter voyage towards Verbier. The Valais Mountains boast a great many climbing huts, often located on the edges of glaciers. The Berthold hut, named for its Genevan patron, was opened in 1898. In summer, these mountains are given over to hikers. In the winter, you need skis and sealskins to make any headway against this panorama. The objective is to go from Chamonix to Zermatt in 7 days by the Haute Route, sleeping in a different hut each night. The Vignette hut, at 3,157 meters, at the foot of the Pigne d'Arolla, one of the best frequented in Switzerland, is a famous stop on the Haute Route. Opened in 1946 on the initiative of an American mountaineer and renovated in 2008, it is even fitted with a landing platform for emergency helicopters. Facing Mont Blanc is the Valzorey hut at an altitude of 3,330 meters between Mont Blanc, Gran Paradiso and Monte Rosa. Built in 1930, it is reached from Bourg Saint-Pierre and in summer is a starting point for conventional ascents of the Grand Combin. These ski tours are at the heart of the Quatre Vallées ski area. At 1,500 meters altitude is Verbier-Saint-Bernard. This alpine village has managed to retain its charm, and here the off-piste possibilities are such that downhill and powder fanatics use the term ski fantastique. We'll climb up to 2,200 meters in Les Ruinettes station to find Victoria Jameson. English-born Victoria is the only female member of the Verbier Ski Patrol.
The work as a ski patrol can be tough, but I think for me it's super important to work outside and to use my body and to be. I have an incredible team that I work with, and we help each other. If there's something we can't do, we always help each other. And sure it can be tiring, but I don't know, I like it.
Victoria is mad about mountains. A few years ago, while climbing, one of her teammates was the victim of an accident. This made her want to join the ski patrol. It's a male-dominated world, but she has adapted well.
For example, when we take the sledge down, we can put underneath it a chain to make it slower. The guys, they never have to use that. I'll use that. But it doesn't change anything. It just means that for me it's easier. And then other than that, for sure, maybe I can't carry as many poles as them. But in general, I don't think it makes a huge difference. I started more, it was mountaineering that I was more passionate about, just to be away from everybody, from the people. I love to leave early in the morning and to watch the sunrise and to walk or climb for hours and hours and hours.
Victoria wants to become a mountain guide. To obtain her diploma, she trains regularly on the rocks at La Barme.
In the summer, I teach climbing, and I take people in the canyons. And for myself, I go into the mountains, and I run, I do mountain biking, climbing for myself. It's incredible because you have to concentrate so much, so you forget about what else is going on in your life. You're just concentrating on what you're doing at that moment. I think that's what I love about it. And I need to be in the mountains, to be doing stuff in the mountains. Not necessarily, I don't have to do anything hard or difficult, but I love to be on an arête, or I love to be on a rock face, and that's what living is for me.
In winter, the extreme competition in Verbier is one of the major international events on the freeride calendar. Since its first edition in 1996, the Free World Tour final in Switzerland has brought together the free-riding elite, whether skiers or snowboarders. Every year, the elite in this unclassifiable discipline tackle the 600-meter north face of the Bec des Rosses with its 55-degree slope. At this level, freeride requires great self-assurance. The evaluation criteria revolve mainly around speed and fluidity. By following the Panosière Glacier to the Combin, our voyage continues to the border between Switzerland and Italy. To avoid these peaks, unconquered in their day, Celts, Romans, Hannibal, and later Napoleon Bonaparte would take the Great St. Bernard Pass. On this trading route, which was also used by pilgrims and bandits, Bernard de Menthon built a refuge in the 11th century to be run by monks. Standing at 2,469 meters, the Great Saint Bernard Hospice boasts 1,000 years of benevolence. The St. Bernard breed of dogs was created here. They were used to guard the hospice before becoming rescue dogs. Cécile Loy is a St. Bernard trainer.
The idea of St. Bernard as a savior is right. It's a big dog, and as there were lots of brigands in the region, they provided security for the canons and for travelers passing through. And as each year there were guides with the dogs, they gradually realized that these dogs had excellent instincts, could sense danger, and sense someone under the snow. It's assumed that the image of the barrel around the neck was created by some writer who made the story up as a nice touch. But it's just part of a legend and didn't actually exist. They may look a little lazy and a little slow, but they really do have the capacity to learn, like any other dog.
Until 2004, the Great St. Bernard Hospice kept the breeding activity to maintain the tradition. In 2005, the Great St. Bernard canons handed over responsibility for the kennels and the breeding to the Barry Foundation, based 1 kilometer lower down in Martigny.
The more we were asked to put on shows, the more we thought we should do more to change the image of the St. Bernard. So we handlers have learnt to teach them things, to have them do little tricks, to pull a cart, to assist in therapy, and to provide lessons for school children, teaching them how to behave with dogs and give them a real job to do.
Cécile has devoted her life to the St. Bernards, and she wouldn't change that for anything in the world.
We give them basic training from the age of 2.5, 3 months, and then, depending on the dog, the more he learns, the faster we go. We do 10 minutes twice a day, or we'll change it around and do 1 day in harness, 1 day learning to open and close a door, and then the next day we'll do something else, fetching an object or mobility exercises, things like that. The St. Bernard is a dog with character, though, and like the people of Velay, he's fairly stubborn. When he decides something, that's it. You have to be even more stubborn. But they're affectionate, and if you get them as puppies and get them used to being in contact with people, they're very easy to manage.
Higher still, let's follow the border between France and the Swiss side of the Mont Blanc Massif. Hikers cross the passes in this mountain barrier in both summer and winter by ski or on foot. The Aiguille d'Argentière, the Aiguille d'Auray. The Salé-Naz Glacier with the Midi des Grands Glacier. And in the distance, Haute-Savoie with the Aiguille Verte and Mont Blanc. Crossing the Rhône Valley once more, we descend to the village of Bé to meet Yves Rossi.
Birds are fascinating. Planes are fascinating. They embody the spirit of freedom.
Yves Rossi, 59, former fighter pilot and airline pilot, nicknamed Jetman, inventor of the jet wing.
I really caught the bug at an air meeting when I saw the hunters of the Swiss patrol fly by at Gruyère. I was 13 years old and I was really impressed. It was a time at air meetings when the planes would pass just over our heads going flat out. And that day I caught the bug. I thought it must be absolutely great to fly those things. So I wanted to become a pilot, and that's how it's all started.
From the Sion aerodrome, Yves likes to slalom above the valley glaciers at the controls of a Hunter, a supersonic aircraft.
On a quelle altitude? Ouais, on est à 150 mètres.
The Alps is one of the world's most beautiful playgrounds. There's that third dimension, that reference. And it's so moving once you've experienced that you go in any direction you like in that dimension. It's amazing how free you feel.
Yves is the first in the world to develop a rigid wing fitted with jet engines that enable him to reach speeds of 300 kilometers per hour. A first twin-engine version made horizontal flight possible for Jetman, and a new one with 4 engines opened up the 3 dimensions, though landing does require a parachute.
To me, it provides a balance, a return to my roots, like I'm on a quest for the Holy Grail. I've had all this experience where I've adapted to lots of procedures. We've been flying for 100 years and the pioneers felt this freedom. They wanted to be birds. I know that seeing an idea through, from having an idea to doing a little sketch to building it and trying out what you had in your head and having it work, it's the most rewarding thing I've done in my life.
With his jet wing, Yves managed to cross the English Channel in just under 10 minutes and has also flown over the Grand Canyon in Colorado.
The ultimate flight, the day when I can stop, is when I'm on a 1,000-meter cliff top with a mate on either side. Gentlemen, start your engine. Ready, guys? And all 3 of us jump off the cliff, hit the throttle, and compete with each other, speeding around the clouds. And after that, I think we'll have a drink.
We continue our flight over Switzerland, above the village of Aigle and into the heart of the Alpes Vaudoises. From the aerodrome at Bay, we move on to Villars, Villeneuve, to head for Châteaudet and Gstaad. One pass, and a few kilometers further on, we stop at Villars-sur-Ollon at 1,300 meters of altitude. Chef at the Grand Hôtel in Villars, Joël Quentin, French by origin and Swiss by adoption, develops dishes based on plants and flowers.
I pick around 100 different wild plants. Like with mushrooms, it can be very dangerous, so you have to know what you're doing. We begin picking as soon as the snow thaws, so we get plants around the tracks from March onwards. We go out as a group plant picking almost every afternoon. There's mélilo, which is yellow sweet clover. There's gallium or woodruff. There's mint, which everybody knows. And right now there's goldenrod, geranium. I make ice creams with geraniums.
Originally from Normandy, mountain lover Joël goes picking above 1,000 meters altitude with Mont Blanc on the horizon. Joël, who trained under some famous master chefs, showcases his wild plants in amuse-gueules or desserts. With his team at the Hotel Victoria restaurant, he rises daily to the challenge of offering a menu that surprises. This chef uses the many virtues of alpine flora, often long forgotten. Recipes for tasty soups, strawberry and violet shortcake, tomato carpaccio, and soft goat's cheese mousse with basil, gratins and flour salads. He knows all the aromatic edible plants that grow at altitude. Joël's gourmet herbarium is as poetic as his cuisine is creative. The combination of traditional ingredients and these plants produces a subtle alchemy between nature and culinary culture.
All our cooking is based on locally sourced plants and produce. We don't need to go any more organic, as everything is as natural as it could be.
As we gain height, we'll pass above the high mountain pastures of Les Diablerets and Les Uns. The fine weather gives people a chance to try mountain biking, particularly from the revolving panoramic restaurant Le Cuclos. Perched at 2,048 meters, its shape is inspired by the two neighboring mountains, Tour Mayen and Tour d'Ailly. Our voyage continues following the railway to the banks of Lake Geneva. The train has played a major role in developing the Swiss Alps. Next stop is Villeneuve with Daniel Pouty, engineer in charge of production at a train manufacturing factory.
The rail service in Switzerland is one of the best in the world, with outstanding punctuality and quality of transportation. In terms of annual kilometers per head, we are among the world's most traveled people.
Bon, Cyril, j'aimerais faire un tour dans le véhicule, est-ce que c'est possible? Ouais, c'est bon. D'accord, il n'y a pas de difficulté majeure. Entendu, merci.
One of the major concerns in Switzerland is ecology, and all Swiss people are mindful of that. That's why they try to use trains. It's true that in the mountains it can be easier by car, but for long journeys everyone tends to take the train because it's usually quicker than by road.
Every day, Daniel inspects the three hangars where several teams are working simultaneously to assemble new trains on two levels. Delivery deadlines and quality standards demand that the manufacturing process be very closely monitored.
Messieurs, comment ça se passe? Marco, vous arrivez à tenir le pas pour mercredi soir? Oui, oui. C'est bon? Pas de difficulté? Notre site est...
Our site is devoted to building trains for Switzerland, and we do the complete assembly until the train is tested and delivered, ready to enter service.
rentrer en service commercial.
The whole of the factory staff is used to dealing with life in the middle of the Alps. They're people who love the land with down-to-earth values. They're simple and honest, and they always have new ideas from having to deal with the mountains. And when you go into the mountains, you don't always know which path you'll take, so you have to be imaginative yet sure of yourself. There's no place for recklessness in the mountains. Here, there's the notion of counting on your fellow man to reach your goal, to get your work done. Yes, I'm happy. It's obvious that living in an environment like the one we have here, with the job that I love, there are lots of advantages. And being able to do all the winter sports, there's alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and in the summers there's sailing and swimming in the lake. The quality of life is remarkable.
Our voyage is coming to an end, so we leave the Lake Geneva Basin for a final climb to altitude. We're entering the Pays d'Arnaud Valley. The famous village of Rougemont and its Romanesque church built by the monks of Cluny in the 11th century. The east-facing cruciform church and its adjoining chateau are listed as an historical monument. The village also contains many houses of historical architectural interest. A little further on is a swanky ski resort frequented by the high society. Gstaad boasts a good number of high-end residences and luxury hotels. There we find Christian Dupuis, a balloon pilot and general handyman at the Grand Hotel Park in Gstaad.
I do the painting, the gardening, I change the bulbs in the rooms, do the daily maintenance in the hotel. I am a jack of all trades at the hotel, and specially hired to pilot the balloon. That gives me a real feeling of freedom and happiness. I mainly fly here in the valley. I've done a few flights down on the plain, but I'd rather fly here. My mountains are sacred, and I feel close to them. I love being up there, like the birds. Quite simply, it's the dream of Icarus. And it's an amazing time. When I'm getting my balloon ready, when I'm there, and the balloon's ready for takeoff, the instruments are primed and everything, and then we lift off. It's, wow.
In winter, the aerological conditions are ideal for flight. The updrafts quietly carry Christian and his balloon skywards.
Winter's great because there's snow everywhere. It's white. It's so beautiful. There's relief and shadows. It's magical. Personally, I prefer flying in the winter. It really is paradise. When you begin to see Mont Blanc, the Matterhorn, all these mountains around here. It's heavenly. The highest I've flown personally was 4,800 meters. But I wouldn't stay very long because there are physical problems, such as the lack of oxygen, and that was just amongst friends. I'm no coward, but let's say you shouldn't be too rash either. You must respect nature, respect the laws of physics. You shouldn't go too far. You don't want to land in the rocks, in the trees or stuff. You should never get stressed out, never be too hasty. You should react at the right time and watch and listen to nature. It's thanks to her that we're flying. It's very important. It's a world of madmen, but it's very friendly.
In January every year, the International Hot Air Balloon Festival is held a few kilometers away in Chateau d'Ay. Christian always takes part. Our voyage in Switzerland ends above the Alpes Vaudoises, facing the hundreds of peaks and glaciers in the valley.